All right, we are live, Mets, Braves, and overall baseball fans. Thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show here on WardyNYM. I got a lot to say. I'm obviously really pissed off. You're going to see me overreact a little bit. I apologize in advance. You know, this is the most hyped-up series for the New York Mets, quite literally since 2015. There's so much importance to this matchup against the Braves, and by no means do the Mets, even if they don't win this series in the scenario where they don't, they can still win this division. The ball is in their court to make sure that they win at least one game in this series. They got Mad Max on the bump tomorrow. We will see what happens. But for now, I would first like to give a shout out to all the Braves fans watching the show live or on replay. You guys, you were far and away the better team tonight. I know we get trolls in the live show and in the comments all the time, but I'm never going to be that fan to say that, oh, the Braves did not deserve this win. They 1,000% deserve this win. They were 100% the better team all night long from the start of this ball game. So again, credit where credit's due. The Braves were the better team. Enjoy it tonight, Braves fans. We'll see if you'll be able to enjoy it more than just these 24 hours until we got Max Scherzer matching up against Kyle Wright tomorrow. But I just want to give tip of the cap. Again, I'm always a schmuck, but I'm not going to be that type of schmuck fan to say that again, just because I'm a Braves Mets fan. I'm not going to be a homer here. The Braves were far and away the better team tonight, and they deserve this victory. But there are reasons why us Mets fans have all the reasons of the world to be pissed off tonight, because in a series of this magnitude coming out in Atlanta, the offense, just like they did to begin their series last time in Atlanta, decided not to show up. And that is a big red flag for this Mets team, because again, if you win one game in this series, you have the tiebreaker entering that series against DC, and you still are in a good spot to win the division as long as you make sure you get the job done against the Nationals. But I would rightfully argue that in the scenario where the Mets drop this series, whether they lose 2 or 3 or get swept, again, in that hypothetical, that is anything but good for a Mets team, one, in a playoff atmosphere in Atlanta, the significance of this matchup, and more than anything, you're going to have your heads hanging low entering your final homestand of the year against DC. I mean, the Mets, we know how they've done against lesser opponents. Nothing is a guarantee. Teams play spoiler, and the bats have been up and down. So to say tomorrow from a Mets fan perspective is a must win is pretty damn close to, especially after you drop game 1 with Jacob Degrom on the bump. And Jake did not have his best stuff today, but by no means is Jake the sole reason for tonight's loss. It goes in hand with some questionable decisions by Buck Showalter on the bullpen. Should they have pulled Jake after only 6 innings and 86 pitches to bring in Tyler Mcgill? And I love Mcgill, but he's a guy that, again, is still inexperienced coming out of the pen. You put him in a 2-run ball game, and then before you know it, it's 5-1, and the Mets are really in a big hole to try to come back. Something that's going to be far easier said than done. I mean, look, they did against the Marlins, but Eduardo Escobar, if he can't single-handedly win the ball game for you again, who's going to? No Mets bats on a consistent level showed up today. The Mets deserve this loss 1,000%, and the Braves 1,000% deserve this win. We're going to be deep diving all the nitty and gritty from what was, in all honesty, a bad ball game. A terrible ball game for the New York Mets in game 1 of their 3-game set. The NL East is now tied up, which is why it was that much more important for the Mets to make sure they won the way that they did, as crazy as it was in that game 2, that series finale against Miami 2 nights ago. Because if it isn't for that, the Mets are already down a full game in the NL East here. So, guys, thank you all so much for chiming in. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe. And as always, folks, help us get to 100 likes for the first short-term goal. Trying to get to a couple hundred by the end of the live show. And also help us get to 18K subs. But, guys, we are like, what? 10, not even 20 subs away from 17.7K subs on the channel. And we are doing a giveaway ASAP once we hit 17.7K by giving away this Max Scherzer bobblehead, strikeout counter bobblehead. Max on the bump tomorrow. There's a solid chance we'll hit 17.7K by then. I'll either do the giveaway over the weekend or, at absolute worst, sometime early next week, probably during the National Series or as the regular season just winds up wrapping up. So we'll get to that. Make sure to smash those buttons. Thank you guys again all so much for the support. I love you all to death. Us Mets fans, guys, before I break down this game, let me hear it in the chat. Braves fans, let me hear it again. I'm always that fan. If the Braves win, Mets lose, talk your shit. This is all your time to talk your shit. And no, I literally just did like the chop without even meaning to. That's how you know it's a bad night to be a Mets fan. Just let me hear it, guys. Let me hear it in the live show right now. Let me hear it on replay. How discouraged are you from the Mets tonight? What is your expectations for the remainder of the series without overreacting too much? Let me hear it, guys. I want to hear it because, again, this is not going to be a rant stream. This wasn't the worst game in the world, but it certainly wasn't the best. The Mets did not play a good ball game. I mean, they had a .212 expected batting average. The bats were not there. They had 8 hits, but were only able to muster 2 measly runs against this Atlanta Braves team that didn't even have Max Fried after 5 innings because he left with an illness. You saw him get sick in the dugout, was about to throw up in a garbage can, went then into the clubhouse, and his day was done. So in a day where Max Fried only goes 5 fucking innings, the Mets do nothing. They do nothing from an offensive standpoint. Francisco Alvarez made his MLB debut tonight. Unfortunately, did not get a hit. And hey, there could be some questions as to should he have been in that spot with bases loaded in the 9th. I like that Buck gave him the leash and gave him the opportunity to hit against righties, hit a deep fly ball, again, a good at-bat in his previous at-bat against a right-hander in Raisel Iglesias, who's been absolutely killing it since arriving at Atlanta around the trade deadline from the LA Angels. But that's a spot where not only with Alvarez, but especially with Naquin, and again, I give props to Naquin for grinding out at that at-bat, the best he did. Again, the guy that has not been playing much. I mean, he's coming off the bench tonight. You could rightfully argue Daniel Vogelbach should have been in that spot. I understood why, because Naquin was playing in the corner. But when you're down by 3 runs, you worry about defense if you get to it for the following half inning. You focus on making sure that you try to tie up this ball game. And you could rightfully argue that Daniel Vogelbach should have been in the spot of either Alvarez or in the spot of that being in Naquin. And again, Alvarez looks solid in all of his at-bats tonight. I'm not going to gripe about the kid one bit. I'm so happy that he was able to make his debut tonight in a big series like this. He looks like, again, a guy that up until that Jansen matchup, he was not getting outmatched in any of his at-bats. But again, Jansen, he was looking for a home run right away. You saw the excitement. You saw the jitters. He was pressing, and Jansen just went 1, 2, 3 on him, and then he was out of here. So it is what it is. I'm not going to gripe about much about Alvarez at all. Again, he's 20 years of age. I said it yesterday. If this kid does anything for the Mets with the opportunities given him, it's a win for the Mets. It sucks that, again, that was a situation where you're trying to get some runs on the board in the 9th. It was a big situation for the Mets. Would Vogelbach have been better in that at-bat? We're going to never know. But again, there are questions with Buck, not only from the offensive standpoint tonight with the lineup and what we saw there, especially in the 9th inning with, again, Alvarez and the likes of Naquin, but also with the bullpen management. Because at the end of the day, why was Jacob Degrom pulled after only 86 pitches? Jake has touched 100 pitches this year, or at least close to. Why aren't you considering at least starting him in the 7th inning? I know that Jake has had some issues later on, especially that 6th inning where he gave up the Dansby bomb, the same way that he gave up a home run to Dansby at home in the Mets win over the Braves. That was one of Jake's first starts of the year. But still, I'm still trusting Jacob Degrom, even without his best stuff, every single day of the week over the entire Mets bullpen, not named Edwin Diaz. Diaz is the only exception, and you're not bringing him in that spot to begin with. So why not extend the leash a little bit further with Jake? I don't know if the thought process is because you might need Jake to pitch the final game of the regular season against the Nationals. But again, this series is so important. It's the most hyped. It's the most vital series the Mets have had literally since 2015. Since 2015. There has not been a series of this magnitude, of this hype, of this importance in that long. So why not, at bare minimum, push Jacob Degrom, a man who, again, hunt a slider, hunt a fastball, and then you saw there did not have the best pitch placement on the Dansby home run. Wasn't the worst pitch placement, but it was just a little too much in towards center of the plate, down in the zone for Dansby to get under that one. Jake made essentially 2 to 3 mistakes tonight, and the Braves are the one team that will always make you pay because they are known for the home run ball. That is what they live off of. But aside from those 2 to 3 mistakes, Jacob Degrom had a quality start for the New York Mets. So he is not the reason, in my opinion, why the Mets lost this baseball game. It comes down to this measly offense doing nothing more than 2 runs, in which the first one was luck because it fell out of the glove of Eddie Rosario, who struggled with the lights early in this game, and then Tomas Nido taking AJ Minter deep lefty on righty that we saw there in the 8th inning. opposite field, and the Mets did nothing more beyond that one. So again, guys, continue smashing those buttons. Let me know your raw reactions. I'm going to address some donations quick, then we're going to deep dive this ball game. I don't know how long we're going to go on tonight. I'm very frustrated, obviously, as a fan. This was a game that I expected the Mets, at minimum, to do better and keep it a closer game than what they did. But once Mcgill gave up those couple more runs that we saw there later in this ball game in the 7th, at that point, it felt like the biggest gut punch. This offense, again, has been so Jekyll and Hyde. And once more, on a night where Max Fried doesn't even go past 5 innings, this team has nothing to show for it aside from that Nito home run. It's discouraging. It really is. But again, let's get into it. Let me get us some donos here before we advance forward in the show. Sean, thank you so much for the dono. Sean says, nah, the Braves don't deserve this. I'm so goddamn pissed at this game. I'm pissed at this game too. But again, as pissed off as I am, we all know the significance of this. I'm not, as much as we like to be homers, I'm never going to come out here and say that, oh, the Braves did not deserve tonight's win. They absolutely did. I'm not going to be called as a fair weather fan that just uses complete bias. The Braves were the better team tonight. They 1,000% outplayed the Mets. They deserve credit for tonight's win. As much as I hate the Braves, as much as I despise them as a fan, they deserve credit. 100%. Thank you again for that dono, though, brother. I appreciate it. Again, you're just one of like a million Mets fans that are upset tonight. And that's why we're in this show. That's why we're going to break down more on the game. That's why we're going to make sure that we're going to break everything down here and then go from there. And again, I know we're going to get trolls in the chat. It is what it is. I expect it. But what I know is that the Mets will have a chance to bounce back tomorrow with Max Scherzer on the bump. And fingers crossed, Max has a great start. But again, even if Max shoves, that's only going to mean so much if this offense doesn't step up. So for me, I'm not as much looking at Max to have a quality start tomorrow as I am this offense to actually hit competently against Kyle Wright, who they have hit well against this year. They beat up on him pretty good when Wright was back, faced the Mets in New York. So I hope we can see those similar results. But again, to be determined. We're not there yet. We're focusing on the now. That's baseball for you. That's the beauty and the curse. It's short term. So Braves fans, Braves in general, they enjoy this high of a win tonight. And then we, as Mets fans, will be in depression until the start of tomorrow's game. That is how baseball works. Let me see, though. I did see another donation or two that I'm trying to get to before we start to break down this ball game. Man, this one hurts. This one hurts. I mean, to lose in the fashion that they did tonight, again, just no offense, man. No offense. Driving me nuts. It really is. Wardy, I'm writing Aaron Judge a Blake check. We'll worry about Aaron Judge come the offseason. Thank you so much for the dono, brother. Appreciate that, JB. I don't think there's any more. Ed, thank you so much for the dono. And the chat just refreshed, so I missed it. Let me go back and find it. So what are you guys saying with blister? What? Who has a blister? Who said that in the chat? Unfortunate L, but we'll get the next two. Fingers crossed, Shadow. Absolutely. Thank you for the dono. Ed with the dono. Blister's a stupid excuse. Don't believe that. Who has a blister? Buck said blister. Jake has a blister. Is that true? Oh, shit. Not going to lie. Watching Max in the dugout brought me comfort. Of course it does. There's no better guy to have in game 2 of this series than Max Scherzer. I mean, he's the bulldog. We all know that for certain. So, okay. Gotcha. Blood blister, according to Buck Showalter, on Degrom. That's why he was taken out of the game. Thank you guys for putting me on. Again, I'm not seeing every single update from the postgame because I'm doing my own postgame show here. So let me reassess what was said. Okay, Jacob Degrom pulled from after 86 pitches. That is more justifiable if it was because of a blister. Hopefully it's nothing big. I did see that the medical trainer was talking with Buck later in this ball game, so I'd imagine that it was for that exact reason regarding the blood blister and a cut cuticle. Okay, gotcha. Thank you guys for the updates. I appreciate that. Again, still disappointing game overall. Again, Jake wasn't terrible by any stretch. Jake had a quality outing, but still not his best. Again, those 3 pitches, only bad pitches that you could rightfully argue Jake pitched tonight. And again, the Braves are going to make you pay. The Braves are who they are. They're relying on the home run ball. That's why they match. That's why they have some of the most home runs in baseball. And the Mets just could not match that. It was as simple as that. 3 solo bombs. Even if that stayed at 3, the Mets were still losing this ball game, only scoring 2 runs. Hold on, guys. Hold on, guys. Degrom said the foamy blood blister he had tonight was something he dealt with in his last start in Oakland. I mean, blisters are common for starting pitchers. I do not believe this is BS. It would make more sense, especially if he is missing some location. Again, no, I don't want to use this as a complete excuse. Pitchers go through blisters all the time. Regardless of the fact of him having the blister, the Mets still need the offense. Hold on. So Jake said, are you guys saying Jake might be out for the remainder of the regular season? I mean, even if that's the case, that shouldn't matter. Your final series is against the Nationals. I don't want to see Jake pitch against the Nationals to begin with. I don't want to see that, especially in the scenario where you say for whatever reason end up in the wild card and not first. Then you're starting the wild card just a couple days later. So you're going to need Jake then. So I don't want to see Jake in the National Series. You shouldn't need Jake for the National Series. So then if that was announced for whatever reason that he's out for the regular season, it doesn't matter. It literally does not matter. So would like to throw that out there. Hopefully Jake heals up and he'll be fine come the postseason. That is what's going to matter for the Mets, because we're going to see Jake not only utilized out of the pen, but we're going to see him, utilized as a starter, but we're going to see him potentially utilized out of the pen as well, because every major starter is utilized out of the pen at some point in playoffs. We're going to probably see with Max. We're probably going to see with Jake. So final thing, again, as the update, guys, Jacob Degrom is dealing with a blood blister and a cut cuticle. That is supposedly why he was pulled after 6 innings, 86 pitches, and did not go for the 7th. But at the end of the day, that really doesn't change anything. That doesn't change my viewpoint or on anything. Jake's going to heal up. He's going to be fine come postseason. But guys, before we break down this ball game, which was a frustrating one for the New York Mets, everyone in the live show right now and everyone on replay, what is your biggest takeaway from tonight's loss from a Mets fan perspective? Let me hear it right now. Bleav Mets fans, we got Max tomorrow. Thank you for the dono, Ed. I'm excited as all hell for Max tomorrow. I'm literally skipping a belated birthday gift of a concert to make sure I watch and cover this game tomorrow. So one, I pray that the Mets have a good game. But thank you so much, Mcgill, for the kind words. I appreciate that. I saw someone else that was being really kind in the chat as well. I apologize I missed your comment of your name. But again, I appreciate everyone's support. Love you guys to death. Mets lose a frustrating one, to say the least, 5-2. But one thing that I want to say is, again, give me your biggest takeaways. We need Marte back. Yes, we do. This Mets team is insane, so much better with Marte. And it sucks that he was not ready to go to be in the lineup for the series. I don't even think he's going to play for the regular season, which further amplifies, as I said in Bleav in Queens episode 25, in our previous episode that came out yesterday. Check it out for all my podcast listeners. It is vital that the Mets win this division, not only for the statement aspect, but for the aspect of giving the likes of Starling Marte more time to heal up. If you win this division, you get those multiple days off versus having to start a wild card game right away, which it would hopefully be enough to have Marte ready to go. And at absolute worst, DHing if, say, he can grip a bat, but say can't grip a baseball well, or hopefully back in the field and right. So that is just another reason why it's so important for the Mets to win this division. Starling Marte is a factor. You do not want to start the postseason, God forbid, without Starling Marte in the lot. You do not want to go into the wild card round in that hypothetical without Starling Marte towards the top of your lineup. So not having him right now definitely hurts. We are all aware of that. And yes, we have announced about Jacob Degrom's injury. It literally changes nothing. All that meant is that Jake was pulled after 6 instead of going for the 7th inning. Jake is going to be back. He'll be ready for playoffs. I don't expect him to start against the Nationals. If he does, I'll be really surprised. The Mets shouldn't need to start Jake against the Nationals. It comes down to that. You should not need him to pitch in that series. But again, I see Braves fans in here. You guys enjoy the dub tonight. You deserve it. Us Mets fans, we're going to wallow for the night. We'll advance forward. We'll be depressed until tomorrow. See what brings. But the point I was trying to make one more time again for the people in the back, then we're going to finally deep dive this ball game, is the fact that, again, the Mets not having the offense is the issue. It does not matter. It does not fucking matter if Max goes out and shoves for, say, hypothetically 7 strong tomorrow. It means nothing if this offense does not hit. They have been so inconsistent throughout the entire, for the past 2 months. They just have not been there on a consistent basis. There's nothing to justify not hitting when Max Fried exits after 5. I know the Braves have a really good bullpen. One of the best in baseball. It still doesn't justify it. There's nothing to justify only having 2 effing runs in this ballgame. It's the same exact thing when you looked at the first 2 games in Atlanta last time the Mets were there. Yes, Ty and Cookie went down early, and the bullpen was atrocious because we were throwing guys out there that aren't even in the pen right now. But aside from having early deficits in the Mets offense, struggling to come back from that like they have for the most part, aside from that Marlins game the other night for a while now, you need to have a consistent offense. So as excited as I am for Max on the bump tomorrow, it means absolutely nothing if this team doesn't know how to competently hit. They need to hit. As simple as that. As simple as that. If the Mets don't hit with their starters, I mean, we're back to square one where the Mets can't hit when they have great pitching. And the bigger thing about that previous series in Atlanta wasn't only those first 2 games where the Mets lost Cookie. They lost Ty, getting blown out early. Offense wasn't there at all. The only good pitcher in those first 2 games, I'm pretty sure, was Darren Ruff when he threw 2 scoreless innings. But if you remember the end of that series, Jake pitched. Jake had a good start, and the Mets couldn't even get enough runs for him. So for the final time, until I repeat myself once more later in the show, pitching's great. You need pitching in a series like this. We know that. But that pitching will not mean an effing thing if this offense does not step up to the plate. Wake up. Wake up. Let's break down this ball game, guys. I'm going to be fairly quick with it. I always break down the ball games for you. I go through the stats, break down what happened with the Mets, what went wrong, especially if you guys aren't watching or didn't watch, rather. In the first, guys, you saw with 1 out, Alonso with the first base knock of the game. Lindor reaches on a fielder's choice, and the Mark Canha grounds out to end the inning. In the bottom of the first, Jacob Degrom comes out guns a-blazing, 1-2-3 inning with 2 strikeouts. In the top of the second, Jeff McHitz comes out with an oppo single. Rosario loses it in the lights, awfully similar to how Mark Canha lost the ball completely in left field last time the Mets were in Atlanta. That has been a problem for many left fielders, especially that we've seen in Atlanta. It's hard to see with those bright lights at night, so I wasn't too surprised there. Rosario, who's not known for his defense either, the Mets would make him pay. Eddie Escobar continues to be red hot throughout the entire month of September, putting the team on his back with a base knock. Alvarez, in his first at-bat of his MLB career, goes first pitch swinging, 94-mile-per-hour ground out into a double play. But again, was encouraged to see Alvarez there. You can tell the strength right away with this kid. I was very encouraged with him today. I'm not going to gripe about him in that final at-bat with Jansen one bit. The only thing you could rightfully gripe about is should he have been in that spot, or would it have been better to maybe put Vogelback in that spot if you're the Mets? Again, you bring a kid in his MLB debut. I love the fact that Buck gave him trust. But at the same time, it's like, what's more important right now? Giving a kid trust with no experience to see what he's going to do when the Mets needed runs there, or potentially handing it to Vogie, who, while, again, he's not the best thing in the world, Vogelback was hot really up until the past series or so. So, again, you can flip a coin what you want to argue about. Alvarez, in my opinion, still had a strong debut, regardless of the fact that he did not get a base knock. Up until that Jansen at-bat, he was looking good, and I was impressed with what I was seeing. Again, 20 years of age. I expect nothing from this kid. If he does anything, us fans have something to be happy about, and then the Mets realize that they may have something there with the DH. And it honestly wouldn't be surprising if we see Alvarez get more playing time in either games 2 or 3, because the Mets are clearly trying to see just how much they have with him in a very small sample size. And that small sample size part is something that they can blame themselves on for not bringing him up sooner if it was going to ultimately lead to this point regardless, where you're not fully trusting Vientos, you're not trusting Ruff. Now on the Phantom IL that we see with a neck strain, I don't know what he has a neck strain from. Sucking, you know what, too much? Like, I don't understand. Regardless, let's advance forward about this ball game, shall we? We see Alvarez with the double play, but Luis Gourmet with a beautiful opposite field RBI single. It falls out of the glove of Eddie Rosario, drives in the first run. Nito with a fly out, ends the inning. In the top of the second, hanging slider to the man that I told you, Mets fans, that I'm most concerned about in this series, that we said in the podcast yesterday or the day before, and that is, in fact, Austin Riley. He rakes, and he rakes against the Mets. A hanging slider, no shit, he's going to make you pay. Jake knew it right away. I knew it right away, right off the bat. It ties the ball game up. And for the first time since, I believe, June of 2019, Jacob Degrom gives up back-to-back home runs as he throws a 99 heater right down the dick to Matt Olson, who, again, this is that Braves team. It does. Look, Jake, I love the velo. Jake, I love you to death. But this is the issue, Jake. These are the issues we've seen in your previous starts, regardless of the blister. Even when you've been at your absolute best, you've given up that home run ball almost every start. This is why, Jake, you have overwhelming stuff. So when you have 99 heat right down the pipe and facing a hitter that knows how to hit home runs, like Matt Olson, even if he has a check swing, that's going to be a deep fly out because how ridiculous that exit velo is. That's why location is so pivotal when you have that much heat on the velo of your fastball, of your changeup, of your slider. Because if you do not locate properly, that shit is going out of the park, and that's exactly what happened. Back-to-back bombs for the Braves. It becomes a 2-1 ball game. Darno with a fly out, Contreras with a ground out, and Rosario strikes out to end the inning. In the third, Orlando Arcia gets things started for the Braves with a base knock. Acuna with a ground out, Swanson with a strikeout. Harris gets on first with an infield single because Lindor with a great heads-up play. Knows Michael Harris is the fastest thing since freaking Lightning McQueen. He's Michael Harris is even faster than Starling Marte. I mean, this guy's a legit speed demon. You knew he was getting down first fast. It was a deep hole for Lindor to deal with. They were on second base. Lindor makes a smart play, throws to third, and you get Arcia stuck between third and home. They get him out, and that was a huge out, and great turn, great awareness by Francisco Lindor. And nothing else would happen that inning because I believe that was the final out. Okay, we get to the fourth. Jacob Degrom starting to get in the groove again, strikes out the side in doing so. In the fifth, Alvarez with an oppo ground out, Gourmet and Nito ground out. And again, at that point, the Mets were retired 10 straight by Max Fried. As we get to the bottom of the fifth, Jacob Degrom with a 1-2-3 inning, including 2 strikeouts. Jake already with like 8 to 10 punchies at that point in the game. Then we get to the sixth. Fried out, McHugh in because Fried exits because of illness. Hopefully for his sake, he's fine. I'm glad that the guy isn't injured. Again, we were all shocked to see Max Fried pulled from this game early. And as a Mets fan, you're feeling good. You're in a one-run ball game at that juncture, and you're like, okay, Fried's coming out of the game. Let's take advantage here. Unfortunately, though, the reason why we're so upset tonight is because the Mets did the complete opposite. They did not do enough. Nimmo with an infield single, Alonso with a double play, and Lindor with a ground out. And Lindor also snapped, unfortunately, his 12 or 13 game hitting streak tonight as well. Lindor did not have a good day at the plate. Many Mets hitters did not have a good day at the plate, as a matter of fact. That top of the order did little to nothing for the Mets. I mean, Nimmo 1 for 4, Alonso 1 for 4, Lindor 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, Canna 0 for 3. I mean, Canna that high in the lineup, you could argue, isn't maybe the best idea. It certainly wasn't a good idea tonight, but the rest of the lineup wasn't terrible, but not great either. We advance forward here in this ball game, folks, after we see there in the sixth, the Mets do nothing. The bottom of the sixth with 1 out. Dansby Swanson takes a fastball that's nicely placed. It's down and in, but just enough where it's covering a little bit of the plate where Dansby, as long as he turns on it, that ball's out of here, and that's exactly what happened. Third run given up by Jacob Degrom tonight is a solo bomb, just like the first two. It's a 3-1 ball game for the Atlanta Braves in their favor. Harris with a fly out, and Riley with a strikeout ends the inning. At the seventh, Raisel Iglesias, who's only given up 1 earned run in over 20 innings coming out of the pen this year for the Atlanta Braves that they acquired, who originally wasn't doing well with the LA Angels. But again, the Angels are knowing how to develop pitching or get consistent pitching, farthest thing from the truth. Of course, he settles down and becomes a reliever that we all know he is one of the better relievers and closers when utilized properly in baseball. Iglesias comes in, and that is where we see the Mets do nothing. With 2 outs, Eduardo Escobar, however, does get himself a nice double because Eddie has been red hot all month long. Alvarez with a deep fly out ends it. Alvarez, again, just slightly under that ball to not get it far enough. To try to get a dead center is not easy, but I was very encouraged with that at-bat especially. You see the power. You see the confidence with the kid. And I like the fact that Buck gave him a leash tonight. I was encouraged to see that. We just get in slight debates when it comes to that 9th inning spot, but I can't emphasize enough, I'm not bothered by Francisco Alvarez one bit tonight. If he does anything for this Mets team before the regular season ends, that is a plus in my opinion. That is a plus. So overall, not going to gripe there. No less, guys. We then get to the 7th. Tyler Mcgill comes in the ball game, and this is where the Mets, unfortunately, have their demise, where the game really starts to get blown open. It's a 3-1 ball game, but Matt Olson rips a single to right to get the thing started there in the 7th. Darno with a double, runners on second and third, no out. Contreras pops out, but Eddie Rosario with an RBI sac fly makes it a 4-1 ball game. And Orlando Arcia rips an RBI double, and then Mcgill comes out of the game. Trevor May comes in and gets the final out of the inning. A nice strikeout on Ronald Acuna Jr. In the 8th, with AJ Minter in the ball game with 1 out, Tomas Nido with an Oppo home run. The Mets would not do anything after that, however, but encouraging for Nido again. He's been hitting really, really nice the past month and a half now. That's a great sight for us Mets fans. Again, Nido has been getting the job done plenty for that catching spot in comparison to what the Mets were doing all year long at the catching position. In the 9th, Joely Rodriguez comes in this game, and you're like, okay, it's a 3-run ball game. I'm still not encouraged to see Joely there, but I have to give props. Joely Rodriguez pitched a perfectly fine, 8th inning, not 9th inning. I had it wrong. Bomb the 8th inning. Joely comes in for a 1-2-3, no strikeouts, but gets those key outs. Props to Joely. Again, he's a man that I've been Jekyll and Hyde with my emotions on all year long. But I have to give props. Joely had a good outing today. Unfortunately, just not a good outing in a game where the Mets, we're going to win the ball game. So it'll be interesting to see if he's in any big spots where the Mets have the lead. And that's where I really start to get shaky and concerned. Then the 9th, we all know what happened. Jansen, you were hoping that we could rep the warm-up Jansen shirts that we have as a joke with shop.Bleav.com. We got close. We got really close. Unfortunately, not enough. Jansen got the job done, even though things were shaky for him. And that's been the story for him for quite a bit now, and save opportunities for the Braves. Jansen reminds me a lot of Jeurys Familia, especially after that 2015 season for the New York Mets. And that save spot was still getting saves, but very shaky in doing so. Nothing ever comes clean with Jansen that we've seen all year long. Braves fans can attest to this, because right away, with only 1 out, Mark Canha's dealing with a hit by pitch after Lindor, I believe, a fly out? Lindor struck out on a way high fastball that he should not have swung at. McNeil with a base knock up the middle. Eduardo Escobar with a walk, so bases juice, less than 2 out. You see, again, Francisco Alvarez outmatched by Jansen. Not too surprised by that. He was looking for the home run ball, pressing a little bit. Is what is. He strikes out, and then Tyler Naquin grinding out his at-bat, but unfortunately ends up striking out on a 94-mile-per-hour fastball right down the pipe, and that ends the ball game. Alvarez is crying. Why is Alvarez isn't crying? Let's see. Is Alvarez actually? I hope Alvarez isn't crying. There's no need for him to cry. Come on. I hope you guys are just bluffing from saying that. I don't want him to be that hard on himself. Bear with me one sec, guys. Yeah, I think people are just saying, yeah, Alvarez isn't crying. No. Stop the nonsense. If he was crying with tears of joy for making his MLB debut, not for a negative. Okay, David with the $10 dono. Thank you so much for that, David. Let's see. Degrom, as much as I don't want to say it, looks like he is not washed, David. For Christ's sake. Jake literally had a quality outing today. Now, was it as good as us Mets fans hoped for? No, of course it wasn't. And again, we have rightful criticisms about those 2 to 3 bad pitches he had because of the fact that the Braves are just not a team that you can sacrifice having any bad pitches down the pipe to, because they literally feast off of fastballs. They feast off of hanging sliders. If you have the slider right and it's cutting nice down away, that Jake has carved up the Braves earlier this year in doing so, then awesome. Jake also dealt with a blister today. How much did that factor in things? I'm not sure, because Jake said, I don't think it factored much, because Jake openly said in his postgame today that he felt good with his mechanics. And that's what made it that much more frustrating. So, again, I don't think the blister factored into enough. Maybe it was just slightly enough to impact location. But if there's one thing that we can gripe about Jake so far this year, again, he's pitched awesome. But it is the fact that, again, as he sees second, third time through the order, he is apparently giving up that home run ball, and he is apparent to 1, hanging the slider, and 2, throwing the fastball, just getting too much plate. He needs to make sure he's picking his corners better, righty versus lefty, and hopefully from there, he's going to have himself a nice outing when he is in the playoffs for the Mets, whenever that's going to be. Thank you so much for the dono, though. I appreciate that, David. Sean with the dono, thank you so much. Sean says, I have a Mets-themed room, and I have to go to sleep and get more depressed by looking at it. Hey, look on the wall behind me. How do you think I'm going to bed tonight? I don't even know if I'm going to go to bed tonight. I'm so cooped up right now. Thank you so much for the donut, Sean. I appreciate that. Steve, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate that. But guys, Warriors top 5. Nito's my number 1 star today. Nito impressed me with that Appa home run. 1 for 3 with the home run, the RBI, and the run scored. Number 2 star is Jacob Degrom because, again, a quality outing from him. Just we expect more when he is viewed as the best pitcher in baseball, simply put. Number 3 star, Eduardo Escobar, 2 for 3 with the double. Number 4 star is going to be Luis Guillorme, 1 for 2. Got pulled from the game later on because they brought in Mark Vientos to pinch hit for him. And then they did the defensive switch there with Naquin in right field and Mcgill going to second base. Still, though, solid day for Guillorme. My number 5 star is Rodriguez. Joely with the scoreless inning. I mean, Jeff McNeil as well. Could have made my top 5. He got his second base knock of the day. McHits with 2 hits. Sounds like a day that ends in Y. 2 for 4 with a run scored. Mets lineup as a whole tonight, folks. Listen with me. Listen clear. You see, again, Brandon Nimmo 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Pete Alonso 1 for 4 with 0 strikeouts. Lindor 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Bad day for Francisco. Francisco's been really batting the ball well, though. I'm not going to grate much. It sucks that he cannot show up tonight. Again, the Mets need more from him and from this entire offense. Mark Canha 0 for 3 with a strikeout. McNeil, as we discussed, 2 for 4 with a run scored. And Eduardo Escobar talking about him. Alvarez 0 for 4 with 1 strikeout. Was encouraged overall with what I saw from Francisco in his MLB debut. Luis Guillorme talked about him. Mark Vientos and Tyler Naquin both go 0 for 1 and they're 1 at bats. And then Tomas Nido, as we discussed. Tyler Mcgill, 0.2 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 0 strikeouts, 0 walks. A rather discouraging outing for Tyler Mcgill in a spot that you don't want to see him in when he's only had a handful of outings out of the pen for the Mets. I mean, even with Jake having to get pulled with his blister, I mean, you could argue that the Mets should not have put Mcgill in that situation. It is what it is, though. I mean, as much as I might gripe about it, we move on. We move forward. Trevor McGill got that 1 out to end that inning, which was good. And then Joely was the final pitcher for the Mets tonight. So before we wrap things up, before I cut things off for people on replay, guys, I want to ask everyone here in the live show, how's the weather looking like tomorrow? I Bleav the weather looks fine in Atlanta tomorrow. It's going to be downpouring here, more on the East Coast, like for me that resides in PA, and I'd imagine for New York. But I think in Atlanta, it's going to be good. It's going to be washed out all weekend here in PA. That's not fun. Let me check out Atlanta real quick. I think the weather's going to hold up, though. Yeah, Atlanta. Yep, it's going to be high 77 tomorrow and Sunday. So weather's looking beautiful in Atlanta, which is good. We need to get these games in. They're huge games. But guys, I'm about to cut things off for people on replay. So everyone here in the live show, let me hear what again is your biggest takeaway from tonight's 5-2 loss from a Mets fan perspective, from a Braves fan perspective. This team stinks. Yes, that's why they're on pace to win 100 wins this year. They're absolutely terrible. They were not fun to watch tonight, though. I 100% agree. But I mean, to go anything beyond that is pretty hilarious. But guys, let me hear your thoughts on the live show. People on replay, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, your biggest takeaway from tonight's loss. Buckle up. I know it's going to be a rough night for us Mets fans, but we got to get right back into it. I already lost years off my life watching this game and being frustrated and yelling about it today. We'll see how many years I scratch off my life tomorrow in game 2. People on the live show, let's get your comments now. People on replay, this is where we're cutting things off.